Hello, children. I don't even know what grade I'm talking to. Are you sixth graders? Great. So sixth grade, we are going to be doing a kaleidoscope project. For this project, I don't care if you do regular symmetry or radial symmetry, but I'm going to show you a really detailed way to get both of those kinds of symmetry. So first of all is just regular symmetry, also known in some parts as bilateral symmetry. You're just going to take a piece of paper and fold it in half. And if you want it to be, you could also fold it this way if you wanted to do like a really tall, skinny design. The bigger the paper on this, the bigger the impact you make. So if you have access to larger drawing paper and could do it on there, that would be great. Also, I would like to do this project in watercolor after. And right now I'm just using a piece of like copy paper out of the computer. This is not gonna be thick enough to do watercolor. I'm actually gonna do it on here so that when I'm doing the watercolor demonstration, I can show you how it's bad on skinny papers. It just doesn't absorb as much color, so the colors don't look as great, and the paper wrinkles up so much that it just kind of takes away from the project. So anyway, so all you guys are gonna do is just fold your paper in half, whichever way you wanna fold it in half. It could be a square paper, it could be a rectangular paper. The minimum size for this is definitely 8.5 by 11. So as long as you're larger than like a basic piece of copy paper or the same size as, then you're doing fine. So anyway, I'm gonna start and just draw any design I want to on this side. The designs that touch the center here create an interesting shape, although they don't have to touch. You could have other shapes out here. You would want this to be really, really detailed, although I'm not gonna make it really detailed because I just don't wanna take up too much of your time. So pretend I did a really, really detailed design on this side. You wanna make sure it's dark in pencil or the pencil transfer doesn't work. Then you're gonna fold it in half. You're gonna take your glue stick. By the way, a glue stick I like because it's just small and easy to use, but you could also use anything that has a hard plastic corner like that. It could be like a marker. I've used like the handle of scissors before. So really any hard plastic edge will do the job. Then you open it up and you have your image symmetrically, perfectly symmetrical on the opposite side, okay? You can see that that triangle I drew now turned into like a V-like shape. This one that was not touching that center line, it looks exactly the same, as does the one that's touching the edge. By the way, you can feel free to like overlap shapes in this project. If you wanted a shape to be like coming out from behind here, the more shapes you have and the more detail you have, the more interesting this project becomes. So feel free to overlap if you choose, okay? So that's bilateral or regular symmetry for this project. All right. I'm going to step it up a notch with quadrilateral symmetry, okay? This was not one that was in our PowerPoint presentation, but basically it's a form of radial symmetry where a design repeats sort of revolving around a center point. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that center point. By the way, this one will work with a square or a rectangular piece of paper. I prefer to use square just because I like for my symmetry to... I don't really know. I just like a square. Anyway, so I'm going to fold it in half one time. I'm going to fold it in half twice. So after you fold it in half twice, you've created your 4 quadrants on your paper, hence the name quadrilateral symmetry, like so. And then what I'm going to do is in one of these quadrants, I am going to start designing here. All right, sorry, I was gonna make this as a separate video, but I feel like it'll be just as easy for you guys to watch and they won't be very long. So in one of my quadrants here, I'm just gonna create a design. It can look like anything that I want it to. It doesn't have to be anything specific. I'm already getting too complicated. I have a problem with doing that. I'm trying to keep these videos short and sweet, but you know, I'm a chatty Cathy, it happens. So then I would draw a bunch of smaller shapes coming in off the edges, some shapes that touch these folds, some shapes that don't, some shapes that touch the outside edge, maybe even shapes that like overlap other shapes. And remember, if you want to overlap, just draw over that shape and then just come back and erase when you're done. Make sure these pencil lines are very, very dark because that will make this next step easier. I fold, I transfer with my hard cornered object. You can't have the object just flat down like this. It just won't transfer. You got to use the corner because it gives a really direct, hard edge. Okay, you guys can't probably really see this because I can barely see this. But anyway, you want to trace over it really, really dark. Trace over your whole design. Let's pretend that I did indeed trace over my whole design. I can see this little guy a little bit too. Look at that. And then after I've traced over the whole design, I'll fold and transfer both of those onto the bottom, and I'll end up with quadrilateral symmetry. Okay, the last kind is my radial symmetry. And I mean, I guess this one is radial symmetry as well. This one's just gonna be very detailed radial symmetry. This one is the only one that absolutely needs to be done on a square. So if you wanna do this kind, let me show you my example of my project. So here's the example I did of this project. Obviously, I did the most detailed version where I'm transferring the design 8 times and then filling in with watercolor. Remember, if you want to use watercolor, try and use a thicker piece of paper, okay? Even construction paper will bode better than just like regular Xerox paper. So drawing pads are great. They actually have drawing pads out there and at Walmart that are for watercolor paper. So if you're into that, I don't really know what this year's going to be like. I don't know if you guys are going to have a chance to like pick up supplies and paper from me or not. I don't really know. So I'm just preparing for the worst, I guess. So what I've done is I just folded in half once, folded in half twice. Although I was talking the whole time. Anyway, so after folded in half twice, open it up, and we're at the same place we were at with the quadrilateral symmetry, kind of the same fold, okay? In order to do the radial, or I guess you could call this even octagonal symmetry because we're doing 8, what you're going to do next is open it up, turn it like a diamond, and then fold it in half, okay? I'm just matching up opposite corners here, and I'm getting a really big triangle. Then I'm gonna fold it in half one more time. Again, match up opposite corners like this. Make sure these edges line up here, make a nice, neat crease. I even like to kind of scratch these with my nail to make sure they're really, really deep folds. And then open it up, and what you'll notice is that you have 8 different triangles. Then in one of those triangles, I'm going to draw in kind of an interesting design in here. I really like to have a shape that goes along this inside sort of triangle, because when you transfer it, it creates a whole new shape within itself. Any shape that you have on these folds, like let's say I'm gonna do a half of a raindrop here, it will turn into a full raindrop when transferred. Any ones that are on the outside out here will not. They will look exactly the same when transferred. And of course, you could have other little shapes that are just floating in translation. Although on the other two, on the quadrilateral and bilateral, I want you guys to do a lot of detail. On this one, if you do a ton of detail, it's gonna be really hard to fill in. Although I do want you to do quite a bit of filling in. I don't want it to just be like 4 dinker shapes just floating there. On all of these, don't do any that are just like straight up lines. They actually need to be a shape, not just a line. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer my design. I'm gonna fold it in half. Doesn't matter which way you fold it, as long as this triangle is face to face with a blank triangle, okay? And I'm gonna transfer. Okay, you can see my design starting to transfer. I'm gonna transfer that little triangle on the outside edge. Okie dokie. You guys might wanna stand up when you're doing this transfer to make sure that it's really transferring nice and dark for you. Okay, so you can see my raindrop now turned into a full raindrop because it was touching that fold there. There's that little baby raindrop floating out in the middle of space. All right, there we go. Then I would fold it in half and I would transfer both of those at the same time. Remember, make sure your pencil lines are dark. That will make it easier, okay? Once you guys get this whole thing transferred, I do need you to send me a picture of it so I can give you points for this stage of the project. So take a picture, put it as an attachment in the assignment, and then turn it in, okay? All right, good luck, guys.